I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah. That is what I heard them say way back in the day. I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah. But it seems like since that day, we have sorely changed. I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah. That is what I heard them say way back in the day. I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah. But it seems like since that day, we have sorely changed. Whoa. Hey, hey. Whoa, oh, 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 whoa, oh, 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 oh.
And now, live from beautiful Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, you're watching My Fellow Americans with your host, Spike Cohen.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome to My Fellow Americans. Welcome. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. We got a great. Thank you. Thank you. I keep forgetting I need to cut this one. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to My Fellow Americans. I am literally Spike Cohen. I'm so happy for you that you're able to be here and spend this time with me, Spike Cohen. This show is going to be so good that it would be criminal if you did not share this with all of your Facebook friends. So feel free to share this video. Also feel free to comment with any questions that you have for me and my guest or any opinions. And we will tell you if you're right or wrong. If you are watching this on YouTube, please like this video, press subscribe, and then hit the bell. I don't know what the bell is. I'm told the bell is important. You got to hit the bell. If you're on SoundCloud, press the follow button to follow this and everything else from My Fellow Americans and Muddied Waters Media. Follow us on Twitter. Go on Instagram and slide up in our DMs. I'm not really sure what those are, but we have people that handle our sliding in our DMs. So be sure to do that, like all the cool kids do. Once again, as always, thank you very much to Muddied Waters Media for giving me this opportunity to broadcast myself to you live every week on My Fellow Americans. I would like to thank Kroger for the delicious Kroger drinking water that I drink on this and every episode of My Fellow Americans. Oh, that is delicious Kroger water. The music, the intro and the outro music that is on this, and so far anyway, every episode of My Fellow Americans is by my good friend Joe Davi, Jodavi. Find him on Facebook, find him on SoundCloud, go to his Bandcamp, buy everything that he has. As always, shout out to Tehran Turks' mom and him. But let's get to it. My guest tonight is a certified Libertarian Party bigwig. He's certified. We certified him right before the show. He is the newly elected at-large representative for the Libertarian National Convention. He is actively working to grow the Libertarian Party through outreach, positive messaging, and BTFO'ing the filthy communists. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome onto my show, Joshua Smith. Joshua.
How's it going, buddy? Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Joshua, thank you so much for joining my show. I'm really thrilled to have you on, and I also appreciate your comment contributions to my last episode.
Good. Yeah, someone's got to get the couch auction started early.
Yeah, exactly. Right at the beginning. I'm hoping Risa is in the comments doing that as we speak. As I say to all Libertarian Party people that I admire, I'm an anarchist slash ANCAP slash voluntarist, whatever you want to. I'm an anarcho leave me aloneist, and I'm somewhat agnostic as to whether or not electoral politics is actually a real way to accomplish anything in terms of having more freedom. But having folks like you that give your time and see what you do gives me some hope that it's actually possible. And I applaud your efforts with that. So thank you.
Thank you. Hey, actually, I tell people this all the time. I say, look, there's two things that we do as libertarians. We can educate the population on free market principles and individual philosophy. And we can get people into positions not to achieve power, but to relinquish power. Now, you can do one of those things outside of the party, but you can do two of them inside of the party. So that's why I feel like the party is really important, because we do get to educate people on this national level, but we can also work really hard to get people into positions to relinquish power. What
is it they say, taking over and leaving you alone or something like that?
Yeah, diabolically plotting to take over the world and leave you alone.
Leave everybody alone. Which I like. I'm a fan of leaving everybody alone. So I applaud you on all of your efforts. First off, I always ask my guests this to start off a show. What would you say brought you to where you are to libertarianism? Was it kind of a gradual evolution from some other political belief, or was there just sort of this sudden aha moment? What kind of brought you there?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixture of both, actually. I served in the United States Navy, and I was a big part of the shock and awe campaign during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Actually started, I was sitting in the middle of the Gulf when George Bush declared war
on Iraq.
Yeah, on Iraq. I know you read my why I'm anti-war post.
Yes, yeah.
That's really what brought me to a place in my life where I started thinking about the government not fixing things and not doing good stuff. And so that really opened my eyes. And then, I found Ron Paul not too long after that, like most of us that are my age did in 2008. We saw this man who was speaking how we felt to the nation, and he was doing it on the big stage and putting, Giuliani in his place and talking about blowback and free market principles. And so, that really got the wheel spinning. And right then I knew that I was a libertarian, but I had no idea there was a Libertarian Party, and so, but I started reading, David Bowes and Hayek and Friedman and Murray Rothbard. And
von Mises and all that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I waited a little while on Human Action. I don't know if you guys know, but that book is about that thick.
Right.
Working on it for my second time now to try and learn more. That's what I did with Adam Smith too. Wealth of Nations. I had to read it twice. It's a hard read. But yeah, so that really got me going on the philosophy, and I knew I was a libertarian, and then I found the Libertarian Party sometime in 2010. It wasn't really a good vehicle for my activism at the time. They weren't looking for hyped up, youthful, ready to go activists, at least not the way I saw it.
Okay.
So I did a lot of my work outside of the party until about 2 years ago. I came back to the party, and I really, I came back with a vengeance, and I became state leadership quickly. And then, last year I saw some things that I wasn't happy with coming from national, and decided I was going to throw my name out there for chair. And I lost miserably, but
no spin. There's a better way to spin that. You came in second.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing is that when I initially announced for chair of the Libertarian National Committee, I had no thought that I could win it whatsoever. And towards the end there, I mean, we got a lot of really good support. We walked into convention.
I was like, man, I think he might. You had a shot. I mean, you did well. You did.
We had a good shot, and at the end of the day, we took almost a quarter of the vote. No one knew who I was a year ago, and we took almost a quarter of the vote. Yeah, from the most popular chairman in 46 years. Right. And so it wasn't really a loss. And then I still got on the national committee. I still had the same opportunities to do the things that I said I was going to do as chair, and I have more voting power because typically, the chair doesn't vote on things typically. Right. And so, it's been a slow moving 10-year course, but I mean, I've known I was a libertarian for the last 10 years. I've been a registered libertarian voter. I haven't voted for any of the two old parties except for Ron Paul. And so,
which doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count. It doesn't count. We didn't have a viable
doesn't
home
count.
for him. Yeah. I mean, in 2008, we had Bob Barr. You know what I mean? or Wayne Allen Root, and like all these people. And it's like, why? When people get mad at Ron Paul for running on the GOP ticket, it hurts me inside to think about who we were working with. And why we weren't working with Ron Paul was because of who we were working with. You know what I mean?
I mean, even more recently, you think I'm a Gary Johnson fan. I think I'm actually Facebook friends with him. But there are times when things are going bad, and I can't help but think how much better things would be if we had elected Bill Weld. Like, maybe I don't know. Maybe you have a different opinion than me, but moderate Republican, somewhat pro gun control governor. I don't know. Maybe he's changed, but I little bit of a tough pill to swallow for me.
Yeah, we got to run better candidates, man. At the end of the day, we have great candidates running all over the country. We have I think we have almost 900 candidates that we're running now and through November across the nation, which is huge for us. That's a huge deal. They set this goal of 2,000 candidates for this election cycle. We almost hit half. So I don't feel like that's a big loss either. I think it's great that we have this many candidates, but we need to make sure that we are constantly working to help them build up their activism, build up their profile, build up their reputation, so that when it does come time for the big show every 4 years, we have those candidates at hand ready to go. You know what I mean? Otherwise we get, ex-Republican governors running on the same ticket together. And all
due respect. Of course.
Yeah, with all due respect. Look, I like Gary Johnson. He wasn't my pick in 2016, but I definitely rallied behind him. I campaigned for him in Washington because at the end of the day, no one was going to bring more liberty to the White House than Gary Johnson and Bill Weld at the time, after nomination process.
With those choices present, right? Compared to Hillary and Jill Stein and Trump.
Dumb. Yeah, absolutely. So it's we kind of pigeonhole ourselves sometimes. I am a libertarian purity guy. I believe that, that's our North Star and that's where we need to be headed at all times. But we're so nitpicky when it comes to that purity that we forget that there are still steps we can take before the Murray Rothbard button. Right. You know what I mean?
Which is what I have a hard time with, because I'm like, I want anarchy now.
Yeah. Yes. Yesterday, right?
Okay. Not now. Okay. Now then. Yeah. So the incrementalism, I get it. I get that there are 320 plus million people, but it's a tough one for me because especially when we're continuing to head in the other direction. It's like, no, let's go this way. But I guess that's what incrementalism is, right? So
and I just had this argument with Patrick Smith, who's, super, super principled. I love him and I love the principled guys. I'm a principled guy myself. I am 100%. And he said, I can't vote for somebody who still has an inkling of authoritarianism. So we, if we have someone who just wants to collect a 5% tax for education or something, I can't vote for that person. Why would we pigeonhole ourselves and not get anything? It's like the whole cut off your nose to spite your face argument.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I get his argument that you're conceding that taxation is legitimate and all of that stuff. But at the same time, I look at my tax bill and I'm like, yes, 5% sounds good. Like, if all things being considered, that probably is better than what we're doing now, even if it's not purely fitting with my principles.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I conceded to eventually, because I am an anarchist and I have no problem saying that.
Yeah,
freely.
I was going to ask, so are you like an ANCAP or I didn't know? Oh, okay.
Yeah, cool. I'm a total, absolutely. I'm a Murray Rothbard libertarian and I love anarchocapitalism. I believe capitalism is the most free, exchange of goods and services and capital. And so, yeah, absolutely. I am. I haven't really been calling myself an ANCAP, publicly to a lot of people. I just typically say voluntarist. I want a voluntary society. I want people to have voluntary interactions.
Right.
And that's a little softer for a lot of people. And then we also have these other people that are now calling themselves ANCAPs, like Chase Rochelle's and
that's the
Jared
problem,
Howe.
Right?
Yeah. And these guys they're excuse my French, they're shitheads and they're not anarcho-capitalists.
No.
They don't believe in a free society. And so those people have kind of tarnished the term ANCAP.
Point, yeah.
So a lot of us have just started saying voluntaries because at the end of the day, that's what we are.
Right. I very briefly was calling myself a radical capitalist, not knowing. And one day someone said, "You mean like Chris Cantwell?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then, so I realized, I thought, maybe I had to look into who Chris Cantwell is. And I looked and I'm like, holy crap, I can never say that again. So, so I took that off but it sucks because I kind of am an actual radical capitalist. So it's true. When terms get, co-opted, you get kind of screwed there. So obviously, besides and you've been sort of touching on this, but besides the fame and fortune, of course, what would you say, was the main thing that led you to run for chair of the LNC? What was it that would you say that kind of stood out the most that you said, I think I need to be, doing this?
I think the road to me wanting new leadership in the Libertarian Party, it ran right through the 2016 elections.
Okay.
I felt like we could have done a lot more. Being a libertarian and also campaigning for the Libertarian presidential nominee in Southern Washington, right across the border from Portland, Oregon, that's very left. Right. I had no help, and I didn't see a big groundswell of Gary Johnson's support in that area from anybody. And so I kind of started looking into it, and that that was around the same time that I joined the party anyways. And so I didn't really know what was going on. And I started really, really getting into it. And I started watching leadership, and I stared watching, Nick do some things that I didn't agree with, like attacking Tom Woods, for
I didn't get that
crap. Yeah. And he's doing it right now
with Eric and Eric July and the Talib Kweli thing. Yeah.
At some point you have to understand that those two gentlemen are libertarians, and not only are they libertarians, combined, they have a following of well over, 150,000 people at least, and what Eric's doing is he's going out and changing culture to a more libertarian culture through music, and Tom's doing it through straight up education, economics, and history. And these people are libertarians, and we have the national chairman of the Libertarian Party starting Twitter beefs with them. And so this was the kind of stuff that I saw over that 2-year stint where I said, no, we're not going to do this anymore. Someone needs to go and challenge this current leadership. We had Arvin Vohra, who, be it as principled as he is, his tactics were just horrible. And God bless him, he's a nice guy.
I know, I have a place in my heart for Arvin. Yeah, not Arvin's his messaging,
great,
but his philosophy and the fact that he clearly doesn't care what anyone thinks about.
No, not at all. And he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. He's a great speaker, amazing speaker. He can run a meeting, he can do a lot of stuff, but it was like these polar opposites where one was trying to push all these principled libertarians away from the party, right, and pander to the two old parties, right? And try and get these failed Republicans and these failed Democrats to join the Libertarian Party, because that's going to make us more libertarian.
Yeah.
And then we have
the centrist party, right? Exactly.
Yeah. And then we had the vice chair pushing away all kinds of veterans and everything, and being a veteran myself, that it was such a hard road for me, because I am very principled, and I am super anti-war. It is my number one policy issue, and then the drug war and so on and so forth, and the Fed and all that good stuff. But that type of messaging doesn't help us out in the mainstream at all.
And go ahead.
No. So that was, I saw this going on, and I'm like, why are we attacking real libertarians that aren't in the party yet? Why aren't we trying to get the real libertarian? Well, I'd rather, I've heard this argument so many times. I'd rather go out and get people who are from the Republican and Democrats and bring them into the party first. Well, there's hundreds of thousands of small L libertarians across the country that aren't in the party right now. They're not registered libertarian voters. They're not helping on campaigns. Why don't we pander to our own
and
first?
You don't have to pre-educate them. You don't have them saying stuff like, well, we need to save Social Security, and then you get to break down why that's why that's not a good idea. They already get it. If anything, you have to kind of rein them in on things like incrementalism. I'd much rather do that if I were in your position than find someone who doesn't like how Trump is treating immigrants or illegals or whatever, but then have to convince them that Medicare for all isn't a good idea. Ultimately you have to do both, I guess, if you want to get enough votes to win in a state or national election. But that's a much easier bridge to cross to convince a libertarian, hey, look, we got to get the normies too. Or we're not going to get this done. Like I said, I get, and this is something I told Risa last week. I struggle with the messaging because I'm philosophically driven. So when I hear with Arvin or something else, and I hear these sort of logical conclusion arguments, I'm like, yeah, I can get that, but you have to meet people where you are, and so I sort of equate it to, because I do sales, and I equate it to if you're cold calling for a service to try to get someone. they don't know who you are, and you contact them and go, hey, look, you're a loser because you don't use my service, and you know, you're going to fail miserably, and also your kid who just signed up for the military is a murderer, and I hang up on them. The odds of them calling back and going, hey, what about that service you were telling me about? That sounds really good. Like, you know, that's not going to work. So I get it. I get what it is, but you know, our politics are so outside of most people's Overton windows that you sort of have to reel them in a little bit before you can go full Murray Rothbard on them, I guess.
Yeah, you really have to think out your outreach. You got to think about who you're talking to. You got to play to your audience, which is always really, really important. You know, people call me online, they call me a troll a lot, but I'm just playing to my audience. You know, and there's a reason for that. You know, we have these people in the party right now that are, you know, they look like Democrats, they look like Republicans, and pandering to the two old tribes. It doesn't make you more libertarian. It makes you more like the old tribe. And so yeah, I troll some of those people sometimes, and I talk a little smack. But when I'm doing real outreach, because you know, this is another thing that they, you know, they're always like, oh, you spend all your time doing this. No, I'm spending my time working my ass off, first of all.
Right.
You know, and so when I'm doing that kind of stuff, it's different. You know, and it is hard to do outreach as a libertarian, but you just got to play to your audience. That's the most important thing you can do when you're talking to the left about anti-war stuff and ending the drug war and prison reform. We're talking to the right, we bring up economics issues. You just have to know your audience.
You get it, right? You have to do that. Because later on down the road, you can get into philosophy. You can, or even in the beginning of that, you can say we're against this because, and get into, you know, laissez-faire theory and you know, propertarianism and stuff like that, but focus on what they agree with you on. Then when they're in and they're helping you with stuff, you can start talking about these other things. You know, I didn't become what I am overnight. I was a neocon around the time of the 9/11 and running up to that. And then, you know, over that, I sort of become a paleocon, constitutionalist, conservatarian, libertarian, minarchist. Now I'm an ANCAP. So, I mean, it sort of, you know, but it took, you know, being exposed to that, you know, incrementally over the course of, in my case, years, before that happened. So I know I definitely agree with you on that. As we discussed, you are the newly minted at-large rep for the LNC. So congratulations on that. Describe to me what your goals are. You've been touching on this, but you know, what would you say your main goals are at the LNC without using the words tent or I don't know, no, I'm kidding. Use whatever word you want. You won't hear me say intent too often.
Okay, good. I posted about this on Twitter the other day. I said, you know, the big tent's great, but if you burn the tent down, you don't have a tent. You don't have a tent.
Have a bunch of dead people in the tent.
You don't have a tent anymore. And so, no, my goals are the same as they were before. You know, I want to double the size of our national memberships by the end of 2019. We're currently sitting around 15,000 national members. It's not enough. We got to pump those numbers up. They're rookie numbers. You know, and I still want to raise as much money as humanly possible in 2019. I'm currently putting together a motion to create an actual paid fundraising team for the Libertarian National Committee.
Wow. Okay.
Which is something that we've never done. We have a gentleman named Robin Corner, if you're familiar. He was the one who built Blue Republicans for Ron Paul. It was one of the biggest political coalitions in history. And he is working on some new marketing and branding strategies for the party that I think we're going to try to roll out sometime after our LNC meeting in the end of September.
Nice.
And so this is all the stuff that I talked about doing, you know, when I was running for my chair campaign. New branding, new marketing strategies. We've been historically terrible at branding and marketing in the party. You know, while the two old parties are using all the super upgraded, perfect, amazing tech and marketing and branding, and we're like, you know, newspapers rolling out.
They have data vaults and like, I mean, they're on a different level. Yeah.
That's now building, you know, a CRM. You know what I mean? And so it's like we have a long ways to go to catch up. But 46 years has kind of lagged because we spent so much time sitting around arguing about philosophy that we forgot to do things that make a national political party a national political party, like you know, winning elections and supporting our candidates.
You know, like having actual like electoral victories. Because there is a place for the philosophical end of it. So if you've influenced the conversation, that's still a good thing. It helps to win some elections too.
So here's the most important philosophical part of our party is our candidates educating the public on philosophy.
Right.
We are a mixed crowd of libertarians in the national party. You know, there are ANCAPs.
Right.
There are are minarchists, there are classical liberals, there's constitutionalists. These people want to shrink the government.
Yep.
And get them out of our pockets, out of our bedrooms, out of our marriage. All the stuff that we want to do, we're on the same page. Some of us just want to take it a few exits.
We're all going in the same direction. It's an issue of how far in the same. I want to go to dead end and then get out of the car and like sit in the park at the end there and like, yeah.
Fence, and we'll take it 5 or 6 more. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where we get into the socialist thing. People are like, well, if you already have all those kinds of libertarians in the party, why don't you think socialists belong to the party? Well, they're not individualist philosophies. They're not working towards an end goal of the individual being the smallest and most important minority. And so that to me is, that's where I kind of had some issues with it. Now, if somebody wanted to start their own commune and co-op and do all that stuff, I don't have any issues with that. But when you start talking about, lining up business owners against the wall,
and killing them for owning things. I talked about this with Risa, like you said, if someone wants to individually have like the Jews with the kibbutzes in Israel or whatever, if you want to have an individual commune and you guys all decide to do everything in common and whatever, that's fine. But in order for it to be voluntary, and in order for you to be at peace and in possibly some, collaboration with outside groups that don't want to be in a commune, you have to respect property rights, your own and others. Otherwise, because if I go, okay, I'm going to just voluntarily have this commune, but I don't respect anyone's property rights, what you're really saying is once I have the means to do so, I'm expanding this commune into other people's properties. And that's not, at least the way that libertarianism was founded, or that the Libertarian Party was founded. That's not what the Libertarian Party is. I know the argument, the original term libertarianism was coined by French socialists or whatever. And I always like to say, okay, great, but then you guys abandoned libertarianism. We homesteaded it, and, it's ours now. You can't claim property and stop trying to rent it to us.
Yeah, no, that's, and that's where therein lies the problem, right? Right. Anytime I've asked them, so you're a voluntary socialist. Yes. Okay, perfect. Say I want to have 2 houses. One is a summer house in the Hamptons, and then I have my normal home in Texas.
Right.
Well, how are you going to protect your second house? I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have.
From who? From you? Because here's the thing. The short answer to that, because I'll get into these endless rabbit hole debates on Facebook or whatever, and people say, well, who will protect it? That's up to me to decide who will protect it. And ultimately, in a world where we're competing for scarce resources, there is no utopia where I don't have to protect my property. I get that. My question is, from who?
Right.
If you're saying, how am I going to protect it from you? In what way is that libertarianism, or at least the way we're talking about it? How is that? How are we showing self-ownership here? If unless we're taking some kind of egoist route where every person for themselves, and I can just take your stuff and that's okay because I did it. If we're trying to operate within some kind of this is your stuff, this is my stuff, how is that going to work without respect for property?
Yeah, and it has to, and that's that's where my whole argument came from, and that's why I was a big proponent of the resolution to reaffirm our property rights in the Libertarian Party, our stance on private property rights, because at the end of the day, I've spent a year debating these people. I've been in the trenches of this war long before the LNC got involved at all.
Right.
And these are people who are members of the party, and are doing outreach and are recruiting more people who believe I have no right to defend a home that I'm not living in full time. They believe that I have no right to rent my property out that I either built, paid for, or traded for. And to me, that is not what libertarianism is about. That's not what the party is fighting for. That goes directly against our platform. And so that was why I raised the big stink about it, I did. And I people are upset that I was vehemently trying to reaffirm a principle that we shouldn't even have to be reaffirming.
Well, and that was the thing. They were comparing it to McCarthyism, which demonstrates that, to me, it demonstrates that they don't see much difference between individual human action and government force. You weren't saying let's jail and comms or whatever. You were saying this doesn't belong in our party. If they want to be a part of the party, fine, but they need to acknowledge that the party has the words laissez-faire capitalism and propertarianism in, founding charter documents or whatever, that's what it's for. So, it's been a very odd thing to me.
Yeah, everyone kept comparing it to a purge, saying that it was some giant purge and that I was a McCarthyist. And no, it wasn't about purging people. It was about making sure that everyone that comes to this party knows what we stand for.
On the same page, exactly. Yeah, I agree 100% on that. I think that I'm glad that conversation was at least started, because I think it needs to be started. Now, you're also one of the co-founders of Think Liberty, which is has a website, and I guess you guys have a podcast, and you even sell merchandise. I need to start selling hats.
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff. We started out as four best friends who, if you're familiar with the other website, Dankertarians.
Yes.
Okay, so originally the four of us that founded Think Liberty, we founded Dankertarians with Matt Keno, the socialist communist who ran for chair against me, and Corbin Brown from Tennessee, who's a cool guy. He's a left libertarian. I don't really know where he stands on property. He goes back and forth. But anyways, so the six of us started Dankertarians together, and that was that was going to be our Think Liberty. This was when Matt, the cat, was still identifying as an anarcho-capitalist. And so we all got along. We all had the same goals and visions, and then it kind of turned into this dumpster fire. And so we had that passed already. And then when I decided to run for chair, he was very upset and decided he was going to run against me.
Yeah. So I didn't know he was originally an ANCAP. I didn't know that.
Yeah. His philosophy switches with the seasons. So and he's never read a philosophy book, and he'll tell you that.
I saw somewhere where he had said, I don't really read a lot. I just how do you say? I'm paraphrasing what he said, but essentially along the lines of, he's going with what people are saying, which was kind of odd.
You got me back?
Oh, are you back?
I think so. You got video?
You're back. Yeah, I got your video.
Yeah. All right, cool. I don't know what happened. It just kicked me out.
Okay,
I'm blaming you, Spike.
It's probably my fault. It's we're 34 minutes in and didn't start the auction, so that's probably it.
Hey, yeah, what's going on? Nobody started a couch auction yet?
I don't get what's going on. Ashanti sent me the link from Craigslist, and we're still staying here like schmucks. Around December and January, I was so hard into couch auctions that my wife was like, please stop with the couch auctions, because she would go and she's like, are you on another Strangers live video? I'm like, no.
I got a buddy who is an epic troll around the internet, and if you know him by the name Squiggly Lines Guy.
Oh yeah, Kevin. Yeah.
And he goes into these things and starts telling the news clips that are live that don't have any sound. He tells them, he tells them if you hit F and then do something that you'll hear sound, and they're all just all these Fs. It's pretty funny. He's a funny troll.
Yeah, I started doing that. I would write type audio to hear sound, and people just audio. And the funny thing is, it'll be going 3-4 minutes later. No one saw what I wrote, but they saw someone else wrote audio, and so they're right.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I love it.
It just goes on forever. These people, it's the internet, man. It's that's why when people are like, oh man, you're just a troll, you're a petty troll. I'm like, it's Facebook and it's the internet, and we're the Libertarian Party. God, if we were able to get some media just because I trolled someone in a Facebook group, that would be wonderful.
That's earned media.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
That is earned media. That is you on national news. Like, why are you asking about couch auctions? Well, while I have you here, let me tell you about.
Let me tell you about the free market.
Exactly. Let me. Have you heard about? Can I introduce you to my Lord and Savior, propertarianism? So
I think some people take the national leadership too seriously when it comes to some things, and not seriously enough when it comes to others. And I think one of them is, they expect us to be these stuffed shirts all the time, and you just can't be a libertarian and be a stuffed shirt all the time. If you are, you probably need to start looking into your philosophy.
We have a president who gives us his stream of consciousness on Twitter.
And all full-on boomer posting.
Constant boomer, all caps and everything. To the president of whatever, do not threaten. I mean, it honestly is a major part of why he won. So if that works, then the couch auction should get us at least, solid second.
Memes really put him into the White House. I mean, they really, really did. It's insane what just passing around tons of ridiculous, stupid memes did for the presidential election. And people don't understand that. We're always having this issue with our social media around the country for for national and for state parties and local parties, and there's always this like headbutting between one person in the party and another person in the party, and one's like, no, we need informational text posts, no, we need memes, and it's like we need to balance both.
Right.
Fire memes because that gets people to come to your cause. It's just how it works, and you know, it's a new era where young people, we don't have very good memory or attention spans anymore. We want something that fits in.
Gotta get it real quick, yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, we don't want to read these long paragraphs. We want something that tells us the meat of what you're trying to say in 4 or 5 sentences tops. And so memes are they're an important thing. And you know, that was another thing I thought our social media wasn't being run very well. And you know, if you look at us at Think Liberty, we were able to garner over 20,000 likes in less than a year from the ground. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's, you know, that kind of stuff is all. It's, you know, it's this new generation of people, and we want to get them excited for our causes. And you know, if we're constantly, you know, you need to read a Murray Rothbard book here,
the entire book before we talk, yeah.
Read the, you know, Argumentation Ethics by Hoppe, or read, you know, and it's like people don't want to do that. Come up with some fire memes. Get people in, then we can talk to them like we're a normal adult human, you know, and so yeah, that's it's all important stuff, but you know, we got to have some fun with it. And I think, you know, if we want to get the younger generations, you know, who aren't voting right now, you know, 60% of the population is not voting.
That's
lot of
the
that.
Thing. I always say none of the above wins every election, because people vote with their feet, and if their feet stay planted on the ground on their couch and they don't go anywhere, that's who won the election in my mind. People saying I don't think any of these people should be elected. I mean, if Trump can get elected with 4chan and boomer posting, then, you know, some good dank memes are not going to hurt the cause, I don't think.
We need them. It's important. You know, we gotta get with the times. And I think, you know, with the Libertarian Party for the last 46 years has always just been a little bit behind on what's popular, and a little bit behind, you know, and you can see it in, you know, these left-wing libertarians yelling at the right-wing libertarians that they're right-wing populists, and the right-wing libertarians yelling back at the left-wing libertarians that they're left-wing populists. And it's like,
right.
Populism isn't a bad thing. We need to get out there and show people that we are, you know, are not only our ideas good, but we're not all neckbeards and fedora hats sitting in our parents' basement. You know what I mean? And so the only way we're going to do that is if we do it, you know, we have a little bit of pop culture, a little, you know what I mean?
I agree. And that's how we are. I mean, again, some of us are some of the biggest internet trolls out there. I'm not sure how I rate, but I'm somewhere between normie and not quite ready to join 4chan, somewhere in there. So I'm probably more in normie territory. But
it's a big span, buddy. It's
yeah,
a big span.
No, I know, and I've seen some of the upper echelon stuff, and I'm like, no, I don't think I'm ready for that. But we're like that. So why wouldn't we be like that in our marketing, especially if that works? So no, I agree with you 100%. And speaking of posting, you had written, we talked about this a second ago, you had written what I thought was a pitch perfect post about why you're anti-war. And in fact, you used the hashtag why I'm anti-war. And
it started by the Libertarian Institute and Scott Horton, by the way. That hashtag is not my doing. That was Scott Horton, and a lot of people posted posts about why they're anti-war with that hashtag. So if anybody else wants to do it, make sure you keep doing it, keep it trending, because it's a really good topic to talk about, and it's opening a lot of eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your post, you talked about being anti-war. You talked about your time in the military and how 9/11 that kind of motivated you to join, and then how when you were there, you became, you know, disillusioned by what you saw. And I just thought it was really, we talked about messaging in particular with veterans. And there's I guess 2 main ways to go about being anti-war or even anti-military in terms of what the military is now. Not just something that gets raised up for common defense, but this sort of perpetual war power that's, you know, trying to, you know, create an empire, and how you bridge that gap. You know, one way to go about it is what I think what you did with your post, where you talked about your experience and why you joined and what your intention was and what you actually saw when you were there. The other way to do it is to say, well, you know, the logical conclusion is that you're all murderers, which, you know, yeah, that's a great way to wheel someone, especially someone, you know, if you have someone, I think about a lot of my friends that are veterans. Some of them have PTSD. Some of them are dealing with all sorts of guilt issues. Some of them are dealing with physical trauma. You know, there's all sorts of stuff that they've lost friends, all sorts of stuff. And here's where you could really reach them with an empathetic message that's like, we get it. We get why you did this, and we want to make sure that this doesn't continue to happen. Or you can say, yeah, well, you're a murderer, or if you joined for, economic reasons, then you're a murderer for hire. Like, I mean, and if you go about it that way, what's the percentage that you think you're going to, convert of the people in that situation?
Not very many.
Not
Five,
very
maybe 1.5%, probably less. Here's the thing, and my favorite saying is of course I support our troops, and that's why I support bringing them home and letting them heal.
Right.
And so it's much easier for people who have actually lived that life, who've actually been in the service, to do that type of outreach. When you have, a silver spoon kid that was given a business by his parents, that's a vice chair of a national political committee, telling soldiers that they're all murderers and that they're all
hypothetically
stupid. Hypothetically.
If that were to happen.
That's a problem because one, you never had to live that life. I was poor. I grew up dirt poor, with a single mom that worked 3 jobs, and I was bouncing. And like I said, I was bouncing around from couch to couch at like 17 already, and I didn't have much going for me. And it was the one thing that I saw, that would give me an option to try and make a life for myself. And I wasn't a libertarian at the time, and I thought I was doing the right thing. And so once you've done that, once you've lived that life, once you've built that camaraderie with, our brothers and sisters that are also doing that, it's a lot easier for you to do outreach because you understand the mental turmoil that you go through after being in the military. You understand the promises that were made. You understand the idealism that you had when you joined. It's kind of, it's one of those things
you
where
were they were, like you're able to meet them where they were. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And which is very important. It's something that Larry Sharp talks about that a lot, meet them where they're at, and so it's a lot easier. And I think if we're doing outreach to veterans, and by the way, if you look at Ron Paul and Gary Johnson, all these libertarian candidates, they always get the most donations from active and reserve and veterans,
and they poll
military.
very well in military
Yes.
polls as well. Which tells you something.
There's a reason. It's because we saw,
we've seen it firsthand, right?
We see what our foreign policy does with our own eyes. We see the wasteful spending, and so let the veterans do outreach to the veterans.
No, I agree.
It's important that you let the veterans do outreach to the veterans, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who know how to talk to veterans without push people away from our goals and our causes. And so I think when we're talking about foreign policy, that's a really good thing for the party to take a huge stance on. But when it comes to veterans, if you haven't been a veteran, talk to a veteran at least and find out, what would you say to another veteran to try and do outreach for the Libertarian Party or the Libertarian cause, because they're always going to know better because they lived it. It's a completely separate life. It's like going to prison. You know what I mean? It's like the same thing.
There are some very strong parallels between that and going to prison.
Almost
one is
the same
voluntary,
thing.
but it's a lot of signing your life away going on there. Yeah.
It is. You wouldn't go up to some dude in prison and tell him, this is what you need to do, because you've never been to prison and you have no idea what you're talking about.
Prisoners are jerks. Yeah. No.
Yeah. You're just a bunch of murderers, right? Yeah. So I think that's important that we have veterans who are doing veterans outreach for libertarian causes, because they already lean very libertarian. A lot of people come back and they're anti-war after serving in a war. You know what I mean? I'm not like some rare case. It's a normal thing. I have a lot of friends that feel the same way and
very often that
yeah.
If they're not anti-war in general, they're just like, what we're doing doesn't work because I was there and I saw it and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And
the mission's corrupt. We're not going to win a war in Afghanistan, and if none of you guys have read Scott Horton's book Fool's Errand, do it. It'll explain this to you much better than I ever could. But we're fighting in caves and caverns and mountains, and we don't even know all the terrain there. We'll never win a war in Afghanistan. That's why we've been there for almost 30 years.
Well, and then when you and I'm trying not to put my tin hat on, but when you look at, and these are declassified public record documents, when you look at the history that the Pentagon and the State Department have in literally funding terror groups that they're simultaneously fight, they fund them in this country and then they're fighting them over here. There's a part of me that thinks, how is this not wag the dog? Like, how is this not just, a jobs program and a stimulus program for weapons contractors where you're creating your enemy over here and then you got to bomb your enemy over here? Like, do they want to win? Like, it seems if you win, then Lockheed Martin stock goes down. Like, I hate to say it that way, but that's really it seems like they are very cavalierly and in a what's the word I'm looking for? They're playing with people's lives and not just the lives of the service people, but the ones that are being killed over there. And it doesn't seem like they necessarily want to win.
They're not playing with lives. They're taking lives.
Yeah, they're taking lives.
And a lot of it is for profit, and it's true. I mean, if we ended all our wars tomorrow, Lockheed Martin would just dump. They wouldn't know what to do. I'm sure their stock dumped when John McCain died the other day. You know what I mean? It's true.
There was that thing that was viral where it was Lockheed Martin. They put out like this statement, this like official statement about the missing John McCain. And I'm like, man, how many politicians get like a send off from Lockheed Martin?
Well, and it's true. We create these terror cells, and then we have to down the road when we instill our puppet leaders, and then we take them out of power. And we put new puppet leaders in. And we're gonna give you democracy, and and it's ridiculous, and it's the broken window fallacy on an international scale.
Oh yeah.
It's exactly what it is. We're creating our own problems. And that was one of the things that really opened my eyes from Ron Paul was talking about blowback. We killed somebody's father 30 years ago in war, and now his son is a 30-year-old terrorist, and we're wondering why.
Yeah.
We're wondering why, and so that was one of those things for me that really, really opened my eyes was, I knew how I was feeling. And then I heard Ron Paul speak about blowback, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's exactly what it is. It's the broken window fallacy. We are breaking windows and then going to fix the windows. You know what I mean? We're creating jobs to fix the windows.
And that was the thing. So in 2004, when I first heard Ron Paul, I was, again, totally pro-war, we got to, install democracy and American values, spread around the world, support Israel. And so when I first heard Ron Paul, I'm like, this guy hates America and he doesn't get it and blah, 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 blah. And when people are like, would say, he polls well among military. And I'm like, well, why? He hates America. Hearing it again. No, it was really just like, well, screw you too. Block and delete. This was pre-Facebook. But then in 2008, when I'm hearing him, pretty much say the same thing in front of Giuliani and in a booing crowd say, hey, look, 9/11 happened because they associate us with all these terrible things that are being done by our government. And how would you like it if a bomb fell next to your house and you felt the impact and all your windows broke, and then you find out that your best friend and your cousin died over there, because of something that none of you had anything to do with? Okay, great. You can talk about collateral damage over here. What does that actually look like to you? How much are you going to be willing to do whatever it takes? Put it this way. When 9/11 happened, you were ready to bomb the entire Middle East, and most of us were thousands of miles away or hundreds of miles away and didn't know anyone that it affected. Imagine if it's in your backyard and it's happening on a regular basis. How upset are you going to get? So no, yeah.
Ron Paul gave a whole speech about that. You can look it up on YouTube. I don't remember the exact name of it, but there's even one that was done like with a dramatic voiceover with music behind it.
Imagine if China, yeah.
Imagine if China came over here and set up in your front yard.
Yep.
And told you that if you cross this line, I'm going to shoot you in the face. What would you do?
Right.
What would you do? We don't live that reality here. And I think that's another reason why vets doing outreach to vets is important, because we've lived that reality, and we've seen other people who live that reality over there.
Yeah.
But people here, they don't live that reality. They just know that we're protecting our freedoms. Well, how the hell did my freedoms get in Iraq? I don't think my freedoms ever went to Iraq. And that's what it is. We need people to understand that war is hell for everybody involved, except for the defense contractors, except for the politicians, and they're sending us to war to die for special interests all the time. It's okay to be anti-war. It's okay to support our troops and still be anti-war, because a lot of our troops are anti-war. You know what I mean?
I know so many people that they waited for their deployment, this shows how little I know, but whatever that has them in active duty to end. and they're just sort of biding their time, hoping that nothing blows up, and they're doing whatever they need to do, and they're doing their job. I mean, they're not being subversive or anything. They're not, bucking high command or whatever. But as soon as they're out, they're like, man, I'm not going back in. I do not support what I did, and I'm glad I'm out. And they don't join the reserves. They don't go back into active duty because they don't support it. And you had posted about, even again, just to show how much you have to meet people, because we can be here arguing between minarchy, even though we're both ANCAPs, but we can have Risa on here and argue between minarchy and anarchy, and the vast majority of the world right now is saying things like, well, say what you want about Senator McCain, but he had strong convictions. And it's like, yeah, but what were those convictions? And you had talked about being respectful about his death, not celebrating it, but also being honest about the hundreds of thousands of deaths that have been caused by him and other war hawks in DC. Not to mention the millions who would have died if he had gotten his way with, wanting to start nuclear war with everyone.
China and Russia.
And everything else. Yeah. And then even you get into the tens of millions of Americans who have been imprisoned and killed by his drug, well, not just his, but the drug war nonsense. I mean, there are many things you can say, oh yeah, he had strong convictions. There are a lot of people that had very strong convictions that I'm not going to, even if they die, I'm not going to go, well, we got to respect them. We can be respectful about their death, but there is that line you have to, that you kind of have to tread where, when the Overton window is so far over to respecting someone like McCain, not just his death, but who he was, it's so far from our principles and advocacies. How do you thread that needle of respecting people's feelings while still telling them the truth? Because honestly, I don't even try most of the time.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, and I wanted to make that very, very clear in that post. And that post it butt hurt some people real bad. I mean, there were some real butt mad people about that
on
post.
both sides of that. Yeah. Everyone, you equally alienated a lot of people. Yeah.
50% of my newsfeed were people celebrating the death of John McCain. Okay. 50% of my newsfeed were people upset at the people who were celebrating the death of John McCain. And some of those people were also calling John McCain an American hero. Now, I spend a lot of time on my personal profile in an echo chamber. I do. When I started running for chair of the Libertarian National Committee, I had about 1,200 friends. I knew most of those people personally. I used to play music. I've toured and played music, and I've been all over the country to different places. And I was in the military, and so I know a lot of people. I've met a lot of people, and I had 1,200 Facebook friends, knowing a lot of people. Now I'm almost to 5,000 friends since I announced for chair a year ago, and it's the majority are libertarians. So when I see libertarians that are kind of getting down on bended knee to worship somebody who perpetuated 30 years of absolutely toxic foreign policy, I need to make it very clear that that is not a libertarian stance. Libertarians do not support continued foreign interventionism. In fact, that should be the party's biggest policy is ending war, because it is the biggest waste of money. It is a loss of innocent human lives. It is typically against the non-aggression principle to go to war with other countries who are having their own civil war, or whatever it is we're going there for. And so I wanted to make it very clear. And I told people, I see a lot of you saying you're going to delete people for celebrating John McCain's death. I don't celebrate death. Right. I don't like death. Death affects me deeply all the time. But I'm also, I'm also not going to mourn for a man who had, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, killed around the country because of his continued need to go to war and fluff his pockets from, war profiteer money. And so, so I said, if you're celebrating, how about this? If you're celebrating his life, delete me, and I meant it. Look, I meant it. If you're going to be mad at people who I understand, I sympathize with, they're happy that this man is no longer in Washington, D.C. If you're going to be mad at those people because they're happy that now maybe less people will die around the world.
They're happy about the one death.
Yeah.
Which again, I mean, every person matters. I'm not commoditizing his life or anything like that. But, I had posted, and you want to talk about people getting butthurt. I said, you most of you celebrate, because most of my friends list is conservative. My political friends list is conservative. And so I got a different stream of people. I have a lot of libertarians, but most of them are conservative. And I said, you celebrated when bin Laden died. McCain killed so many more people than bin Laden did. now talk to me about, not celebrating someone's death. And I noted, I said, look, I'm not saying celebrate John McCain's death, although the memes were just, but I'm not saying to do that. I'm not saying to get into that the horrible wormhole that I'm in, and possibly you. But I'm also, and I'm not saying mourn Bin Laden's death. I'm saying there's something to be said about consistency. If we are okay with someone dying because they contributed to mass human suffering, then maybe we should always do that. And if we don't, then we maybe shouldn't always do that. And I got a lot of people upset. Well, he was in a cage for 7 years.
Oh no,
that's terrible. Why,
we see this
of all the people that would not want to be, he walked away from that experience and was like, I want to do that to other people. Like
war's bad, John. War's bad, John. War's hell. Yeah. You know it. You know it
exactly.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. So we see this happen all the time. This is cognitive dissonance in the United States. And it's the same. We talk about terrorism all the time, and anytime someone starts bringing up terrorism, they bring up Muslims. And a very, very small fraction of mass murders in the United States are committed by brown people from the Middle East. Very small. It's typically, that same single white guy with the big buggy eyes that pulls out a gun at a video game conference, or a middle school, or a black Southern church, or you know what I mean. It's and they don't talk about that. You know what I mean? Because that's our own people. You know what I mean? It's like it's bullshit.
And the Pentagon isn't funding angry white guy groups. So they say if you subsidize apples, you're going to get apples. The U.S. government subsidizes radical Islamic terrorism, and then we're shocked that there's all this radical Islamic terrorism. And it's like, well, then stop giving them money and funding and training and calling them freedom fighters, and then putting people in place that they hate and setting if you fund something, you're going to get more of it.
Well, and then if you tell someone that, they call you a liar, and you're like, this is documented,
public knowledge. Yeah.
Public knowledge.
Yeah.
You can go and see that we trained and armed Al Qaeda. You can go look at it right now. It's very easy to do. And very easy.
And you can't tell me it's not still happening. We're gonna find out. It's one of those, it's a rolling thing. We'll find out 2 years from, in 2020, we'll find out what was happening in 2018. In 2025, we find out what's happening in 2022. And people go, oh, but that was then. Oh, okay, it's only been happening for 60 or 40 years or whatever. I'm sure it's ended this very minute because Trump's in charge now. That's crazy to me. But I want to promote this for you. You have an upcoming debate this Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Is that correct?
Yes.
With Mike Shipley on the Anarcho Redneck podcast.
Yes.
And it's being billed as a LibSoc versus LibCap debate. Which I love because there are not enough portmanteaus in libertarian discussion groups already. So we've got to add more portmanteaus. But for my normies out there, that's basically there's going to be a debate between you're a libertarian capitalist and you're going to be debating a libertarian socialist. And I'm definitely going to be tuning into that. Tell me how you think that's going to go.
Well, I'm going to paint him into a corner with ethics. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not about philosophy; it's about ethics and. Yep. These are ethical, normal ideals to hold. Don't hurt people. Don't take their shit.
Right.
It's this is. I don't have to dig deep into the Murray Rothbard books and the and the Hayek books to win this argument. It's you can. He's gonna come out swinging with all this long word salad stuff that he likes to have and about God, I don't even know. I'm gonna try not to laugh, and then and then I'm just gonna come swinging with for one because he's gonna use John Locke on me immediately. He's like, well, our stuff's in line with Lockean private or property norms. Okay, that's cool. I don't agree with everything that John Locke says. You know what I mean?
John Locke is not the end all be all.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think he had some very paradoxical views. And I don't need to use philosophy to win this argument. I only need to use ethics. At the end of the day, It is unethical to take people's shit and to hurt them when they are not doing the same to you. So I think he's going to get the floor mopped with him basically, and then he's actually the following week or 2 weeks later he's debating Patrick Smith, who's way better than I am. So it's gonna be a rough couple weeks for old Mike Shipley, I think.
So this is you're the when the champ is going after, he's thinking to the challenge, and then he gets beat up by the guy before him, the tune-up fight. So That's I'm not calling you the tune-up fight, but that's yeah. You and then he thinks, man, do I still want to debate the other guy too?
Yeah, it's the gatekeeper for sure. Patrick Smith is amazingly intelligent.
When you defeat all the other LibCaps, you must face the final boss, but you're going to beat him before that. So, and full disclosure, we here at My Fellow Americans and Muddied Waters Media are of the belief that communists and socialists are actually worse than wild hogs. I think I told Risa about this, because even though they are both violent squatters, wild hogs at least take care of their families, and also they have tusks, which I think are awesome. So when I think about the fact that, you know, if the Libertarian Party comes, and this is me again, I try my best not to get wide-eyed, and I saw what they did to Alex Jones. I'm trying to avoid that, and you know, the frogs are gay. If they want to be gay, they're gay. I have no idea why that is. But when I consider the fact that if the Libertarian Party came to power, it would
relinquish power.
Right, but if they were to win elections, if they win the presidency, they win, you know, I'm you know, filibuster-proof majority, you know, whatever you want to call your pie in the sky of libertarian victory, that would really end the country's slide to socialism, and or at least threaten to end it. And when I see the history, and socialists know that, and when I see the history of socialists and communists infiltrating other groups and you know, just basically just to destroy them from within, and then I see someone like Matt. I'm going to butcher his name. Is Kino Kuno?
It's spelled weird, but it's actually Kino, like the
like Kino game. Reeves.
Yeah, like Kino, just Kino.
Oh, okay.
Like, it's pronounced like Keno, Kino.
Oh, okay. So, but when I see people like Matt saying things like their goal is to bring in an endless stream of socialists into the party, not to bring them to socialism or to bring them to libertarianism, but just to have them in there. Am I being paranoid to think that at least for some of these folks, this is an attempt by communists and socialists to sort of destroy the capitalist propertarian roots of the Libertarian Party and sort of neutralize that threat to the move towards socialism?
No, and as a matter of fact, that's actually been stated by several of them. You know,
that never mind.
Like, yeah, you know, that's been like a public statement that I've seen some of them make. You know, smash capitalism. Well, we're the party of capitalism.
Right.
Is anyone paying attention?
Right.
Anybody?
Yep.
You know, that's kind of it's insane to me, because we are the last line of defense against socialism. If you look at it, the Republicans support all kinds of socialism. The Democrats are basically the party of socialists now. The Green Party is the party of socialists. The
right.
DSA is actually the Democratic Socialists
Literally
of America.
Yeah.
You know, we are the last line of defense against socialism and communism in the United States as far as our, you know, political platforms go. And we are the only running candidates that don't support socialism. Why in God's earth would we bring socialists into the party?
The final bastion of capitalism.
It's the most asinine thing I've ever seen in my life, and I will continue to battle it on every front I possibly can.
Well, good. I salute you on that. I think it's like you said, even the Republican Party, Republicans talk about capitalism. That's wonderful. I'm glad. When I see a Republican talking about the wonders of capitalism, it warms my cockles. But then they'll turn around and say something like, "We have to preserve Social Security," or they'll talk about, you know, strengthening whatever government program, the education or whatever else, or they'll talk about, even if they talk about decentralizing it, we'll give it back to the states. Okay, now it'll be state by state socialism, but there's still, and you know, they do this with Medicare. You know, Bernie Sanders is a genius by relabeling socialized healthcare Medicare for all, because Republicans have been defending Medicare for 25 years now. So I told someone, I said, you know, single payer's coming. There's a good chance it will come under Trump with either a Republican or Democrat Congress, and at least half of you will find yourselves looking at a way to try to defend it, because you don't have philosophical backing behind your belief. You're against the Democrats and you're in favor of the Republicans, and which is why your talking points about capitalism can be just as easily supplanted with, you know, tariffs and protectionism and you know, immigration controls and endless war, because you're not based on a philosophical underpinning of self-ownership, property rights, any of that stuff. It's whatever the Republican Party wants is what I do too. So which is fine. I mean, people have the right to whatever opinion they want. The problem is that
tribalism.
It is. It's team sports. You know, the reality is that and I know I'm bringing this up because you and Risa with your cowboy stuff. But ultimately, the different football teams are all doing the same thing, and yet obviously to different degrees of, I mean, whoever wins did the best job at it, but no one's coming in and saying like, let's play golf instead. And so, but yet you see these teams and they talk about the other teams like, like they're just not even doing the same thing. And it's like, no, this team was better at that or whatever. And you see that in politics. A Republican will talk about a Democrat, and a Democrat will talk about a Republican, as though one is, wants to destroy America and bring in all the Muslims and Mexicans so they can rape our children, and then the other one saying that the Republicans want to lock up everyone and throw away the key and force us all into being Christians. And the reality is there's so little daylight between the actual policy prescription beliefs of Republican politicians and Democrat politicians. It's a joke to me. So when you have the Libertarian Party that is, ostensibly fighting for actual capitalism and actual, smaller government, or even, no government, but at least smaller, radically smaller government, not just reducing the rate of growth or whatever, but actual reduction of government. And then you see an active element within it that's like, yeah, rent is theft and everything needs to be communally owned.
And Medicare for all. Don't forget the Medicare for all that they're screaming for.
Medicare for all. You want to tell me, oh no, but what we want is, the voluntary communism that will spring forth once we remove all of the hierarchies of the state. Oh, but Medicare for all also, by the way, as a transitory step. And it's like, how are you any different than the anarcho-bordertarians that are saying we need to turn the U.S. into a fortress ethno-state as a transitory step to libertarianism,
we have to do that, then we can end welfare. Then we can reopen.
then we can end the government. But first, we got to get rid of all those.
Nothing like growing the state to fix a problem caused by the state.
And they're all doing the same thing. And that's the whole thing. Is it's like, okay, great. How are you guys? It's like when I see Democrats and Republicans saying the same thing. When I see the Chris Cantwell, Christopher Chase, Rachel types, and the Matt Kenos and the Mike Shipleys and whatever. And to me, it's like, you guys are arguing the same thing. You're both saying that we need to grow government for now, because eventually that's going to lead to, and I don't believe either of them. Neither one of them wants libertarianism. That's they want.
It's horseshoe theory confirmed.
Yeah, horseshoe theory confirmed. But it's the same arguments between the communists and the fascists 100 years ago. It's just now they're a little more edgy and they listen to synth rock or whatever. But I mean, but it's the same. It's the same, and they had neckbeards back then too. So it's actually full circle. But they're having those same arguments now, and it's like, why do you have to have the Libertarian Party as part of it?
I just want to point out that I do actually shave my neck. See, I'm growing a beard because I live in Texas now, and there's beautiful beards to be envious of everywhere, and I felt like I needed to fit in, so I'm kind of in the awkward stage. But I do shave it off there. I shave the neck.
See, every time I got into this with Risa a little bit because I shaved right before, or maybe the day before I interviewed her, solely so that because I knew the conversation of neckbeards was going to come up, and I didn't want to be like, oh yeah, those neckbeards are terrible. I have tried desperately to figure out where the line is. And it's always like, not enough, not enough, not enough. I'm headed to the gay bar. And I just can't
Mine is definitely the jawline.
And that's the thing. My jawline, I don't know. I mean, it's me. But, and if you go to a gay bar, I have no judgment about that whatsoever. But me personally, married man, I just, whatever. So I'm trying to get that thing. But you had talked about Robin Kerner and weapons of mass persuasion. And I've been, Risa shares his stuff a lot, and I've been reading it. And, it talks about a lot of what you're talking about. Ask more questions to get where they are. First of all, people like being asked questions. Second of all, when you're talking to someone, and again, I'm in sales, any sales type situation, if I'm trying to sell you something, in this case, liberty, everything I say to you, you're taking with a grain of salt because I'm another person. Everything you say is 100% the truth because you're saying it. So the more I can have you talk, the more I can have you say what you believe, and then just sort of fit in there, oh, well, that sounds like you, blah, 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 blah. And you go, oh, yeah, I guess I do. That, in my mind, is going to work a lot better than me, like you said, read Rothbard. Go, I'm going to email you a list of ebooks that you need to, start with Jordan Peterson.
Here's some think tank, web search pages.
Yeah, here's the Cato website. I need you to go through A through D, and then we'll circle back next week. People aren't going to do it. So I'm glad to see that there are people that are out there that are a little more patient than I am, I guess you could say. Because I am pure. I'm ready to just meme my Skycloth demands promises memes all over the every time.
Here's the problem. Libertarians are not known for their social expertise, and I think we need more people with social expertise, and so that's why I'm glad to see people like Dave Smith joining the party, and Stephen Kinsella and Tom Woods and Jason Stapleton, and those guys are kind of like they're. The majority of them are Austrian economics guys like me, but they have that personality where they can just talk to anybody, which is really, really important for us as libertarians. And I think, the one thing that we forget the most is that we have 2 ears and one mouth. And so we're always talking at people, always talking at people instead of, saying, tell me what you fear. What's your worries? How would you fix?
Why are you politically involved? Yeah.
How would you fix, the healthcare crisis? How would you fix this? How would you fix that? Oh, well, have you thought about looking at it from this direction, or
right.
or have you looked into these platforms or this party and so it's good to let people come to their own beliefs through their own journey, and you can be a guide for that. But when you start telling them what to do and how to do it, their inner libertarian is going to come out. And unfortunately, that inner libertarian is not educated on libertarianism. So all they know is they don't want to listen to what you have to say because they're going to do their own thing. You know what I mean? And
right, exactly.
Yeah. It's really important that we remember that we have 2 ears and one mouth, and that we can actually sit down with people and have conversations without telling them that they're statists and cucks and
say roads over and over again, as if they even know what you're talking about. It's tough though when someone's like, "But what about roads?" And there are times I'm like, "My God, I know, right?" I'm like, "My God, I had never considered the roads." I hadn't thought about that, but they hadn't thought about that. And the thing is, you have to meet them from the fact that when they think of government, they think of the fact that they have roads, and they really haven't put a tremendous amount of thought into it. And so, one of the ways I've been fairly good at getting some people on the left against gun control, or at least backing off of it a little bit, simply by asking them questions about the police and the prison state, and how, people of color and disadvantaged communities are disproportionately targeted with unfair laws and whatever. And I'll say, after having that conversation, I'm like, okay, how many more people of color does Donald Trump need to lock up before you feel sufficiently safe?
Gun regulations are racist. Period. Plain and simple. I'll say
the very first gun laws in the U.S. were written in southern states to prevent freed slaves from owning guns. That, in my mind, is the end of the conversation.
It's the same with the drug war too. A lot of these policies were created racially. The three strikes law, but brought in by Bill Clinton. I mean, these laws, if you look at them, they disproportionately affect the black community. That's what they do. That's what they were created to do. It's always bums me out to see the black community joining the left. But I am seeing a lot more of that community start to kind of open their eyes to libertarianism. And here's a big problem. People are always talking about how it's always these white people in libertarianism. Well, here's the problem. Our candidates are terrified to go into the black communities. That's the problem. That's the biggest problem. And I've seen that. And I've started to see some of our candidates who are like, maybe I need to go to the other part of town. You know what I mean? Which it's like, dude, seriously, you're running for governor of the state. You absolutely should. You need to go let people know that these policies that the government are putting out are geared. Yeah,
the very people that are being disproportionately targeted. I can talk to a white person about the prison, the prison pipeline all day long, and they'll get it in theory. Or I can talk to someone who has 4 close relatives in prison right now on a drug rap. Who's going to be more receptive to my message about, because they already are against the drug war more than likely, because they've seen firsthand, and without getting too far into it, it was black Democrats, the Congressional Black Caucus in the height of the crack epidemic, who demanded that Reagan institute the zero tolerance policy. That clearly failed. So
these policies, if you look at who they affect the lower class in general. They affect inner city communities. They affect the black community. They affect the people that the government truly doesn't care about. But they want to get them as dependent on the government as possible, and that's what all these policies are enacted for. And so when we can start opening people's minds to that stuff and not staying in our echo chamber and talking to these people about that stuff, it's going to change a lot of minds, because it's true. We have 60% or no 75% of the people that are locked up on drug charges right now are locked up on drug charges with no victim. There was no victim. It's asinine. And so we need to really start looking at our outreach. It's been horrible. And that's why I think that, the personalities are a good thing. People are always talking about, oh, he's a cult of personality. He just has personality.
He has a personality. He has a personality. And he spoke to, specifically Trump and Bernie Sanders too. Terrible policies. They spoke to people's fears. Bernie Sanders speaks to people's fears of not having health care, or their kids not being able to get, go to college, or, gun people being shot to death or whatever. He's speaking to people's fears. Trump is also in favor of all those things, so he spoke to those fears too, because no semblance of small government conservatism ever again. But he spoke to those fears too, and then he spoke to people's fears of being displaced by immigrants, or of losing jobs to China or whatever else. But those are legitimate fears that people have. The belief of what's happening isn't legitimate, because the problem isn't immigrants, and the problem isn't free trade. It's government involvement in those things. But their fear is legitimate. They lost their job. They lost their job and saw that now their job is being done in Mexico, or it's being done here by someone who doesn't speak English. And so they spoke to those fears. They didn't say, well, the philosophical underpinning of the Republican Party says that blah 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 blah. They spoke to those fears. So I'm glad to see that people in that are in the Libertarian Party see that you got to meet people where they are, and you got to speak to what it is that even has them involved in politics in the first place.
My God, Spike, are you talking about populism? Are you talking about dealing with people's popular fears?
Going outside and talking to human beings?
Here's the thing, Spike. There's two words that win elections. It's hope and change. That's what people want. They want hope. They want to have a hope. They want to know that their fears are going to be taken care of.
Right.
And there's change, because they're voting for someone new because they don't think the last person's doing something right. Hope and change are what win elections.
Yep.
And we've seen it. And so, when people start using this populism word, I'm always like, well, what does that mean? Like, you don't want to do what's popular, as far as, okay, these people are worried about education. Yeah. You guys want to be unpopular? No, we want to be the majority. We want to take over the Senate. You know what I mean?
Right.
We want to leave everyone alone. So we need to get to people and talk to them and find out what their fears are. And that's, finding out what the popular thing is. Everyone's talking about this blue wave right now, and I can see some of the people in our party want to ride the blue wave. It's not going to work for us, because, shit's antithetical to what we're doing.
Why would it? Yeah. Why would
it?
Yeah.
But so we need to be popular. We need to go out and be popular and have a personality and talk to people and find out what their fears are and tell them how our policies are the least invasive and most peaceful ways to achieve what they're looking for in society. That is being popular. That is showing people that we can be popular. And so, that populism word really holds no weight over me whatsoever.
Yeah, I know there are people that associate populism with protectionism, mercantilism, big government and things like that. And I'm not as positive on terminology, but if we're talking about being popular,
populism. Well, so Murray Rothbard wrote a paper on right-wing populism and said that we needed to go and do outreach to the right wing, because that's how we were going to grow as a party. Well, I don't really agree with it. And he was talking about all kinds of weird shit, like reaching out to, David Duke and the KKK and all that shit, right? We need to I'm all set. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to go reach out to the KKK, especially, we don't need them to win, votes. But
talk about populism. Yeah, we probably don't need that.
Yeah. So populism, was, this thing, Murray Rothbard wanted to, be popular to the right, bring these ideas and bring them over to the party.
Right.
Well, I want to do that to everybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a right wing or left wing populist guy. I just want to be popular. Well, you know what I mean? And I don't mean personally. I mean the party. I mean our ideology. I mean our philosophy. I want it to be popular.
Right.
And we can't do that by yelling status in people's faces.
Oh, you can't?
No,
Damn
it doesn't work.
I was trying so hard. I just was waiting for them to go, oh, okay, well then who's your candidate? We'll vote for him.
I'm a statist. All right, I got it.
I'm a statist? Well, I don't want to be a statist. That sounds terrible. I don't even know what that is. But to that end of reaching out to the right, I know you're a member of the Mises Caucus, and I'm in that Facebook group. And frankly, I haven't seen any of the white supremacy or calls for a Nazi takeover of the U.S. that I keep hearing about. What gives with that?
Isn't that shocking that you're in the
waiting?
group and
I'm
you've
like,
never seen that stuff?
When are they going to say I should be killed for being
the funny
Jewish?
thing is there's like over 3,600 people in that group now, and a lot of those people aren't even actually technically in the core caucus, and they're not even like right-wing Nazi take over the country kind of people. So I don't know, man.
Any minute now it's coming.
Yeah, there's a small but very loud minority in this party that equates anything Auburn with neo-Confederacy and
right.
Nazism, and it's like, would you listen to Tom Woods' podcast? He's not a neo-Confederate. He calls for an end of the empire, and he supports individualism and ending the drug war, and it's like, how can you sit there and think that any of that is neo-Confederacy? If you have ever listened to Tom Woods' podcast, if you have ever listened to Dave Smith, if you have ever read Stephan Kinsella or Gene Epstein or any of these people, you would know that you're being dishonest. You know what I mean?
They talk about the fact that like when I was 4, like they're talking about like 1985, Tom Woods was in the Sons of the South or something that.
League of the South. In fact, he only went to like the first meeting, and it was like a meeting of scholars. Jeffrey Tucker brought him there. You know
Jeffrey
what I mean?
Tucker, known white nationalist. Jeffrey Tucker.
known white nationalist.
Known white.
Yeah, Jeffrey Tucker brought him there. There was some really big scholars there. There was a vote taken to go in a direction, 2 different directions. One of them was to, preserve Southern culture or something stupid, and then the other one was to talk about succession of states and individuals, and Tom voted for that. Tom voted for that one. He lost. He didn't stick around, and that was pretty much the extent of his involvement with the League of the South. And so just because he did that, and then 10, 20 years later, the League of the South decides that they're about, preserving the heritage of white Anglo-Saxons or whatever. And Tom's like, hello, I haven't even been around them for like 15 years, 16 years.
It's not like, okay, there are people that's like, yeah, but what else has he said since then? We don't know that he doesn't think. You have hundreds of podcasts.
No, there's over 1,400 podcasts.
Over 1,000. We're closing up on 2,000 podcasts.
Yeah. Listen,
at any minute the man's going to be a Nazi. I'm just waiting for it, and I'm going to go.
It's going to slip out. Oh, and then he had Chris Cantwell on his show in 2014. Cool. I used to follow Chris Cantwell in 2014. That was when he was like,
that was when he was an actual libertarian. That's
he's an ANCAP. He didn't become a brutalist until like 2 years ago.
That would be like
randomly.
That would be like apparently socialists going after Matt because someone that had Matt on their show, in the past when he was a capitalist or something like that.
Yeah.
Like people change, and the Cantwell thing was like, well, Cantwell wasn't what he is now. He wasn't a fascist at the time. The Sons of the South thing is just like, or no, the League of the South thing is just like, it was 4. Like it was like 1985 or 86 or something. Like, who the hell?
Yeah, I think
like even if he was a racist back then,
25 years ago, I think Tom was like 18 or 19.
Yeah,
or 20
even
or
if
something.
even if he had fully believed in that back then, now knowing he doesn't, the fact that you're still appealing to that, Talib Kweli, demonstrates that you have no clue what you're talking about with the guy. It's hilarious to me. And I mean, he's a minarchist, so I'm not, there are things I don't agree with him on, but I'm not going to call a man a Nazi. So, but anyway, I
wouldn't say that Tom is a minarchist. I wouldn't even say that. Tom wants to completely end the empire. He talks about it quite frequently. I think he's a little further. He's a couple exits further than minarchist, I would say. But yeah, it's just it's insane to hear it. Every time I hear it, all I can think about is, man, you guys are so dishonest. I mean, it's appalling how dishonest it was. And when they were doing it before my chair run, it didn't affect me personally, but I knew they were wrong. But then they started doing it to me during my chair run, calling me a Nazi, calling me a alt-right interest. And I've been calling out the alt-right publicly.
I know. When I sent you a friend request, it was in the midst of all that when you were calling out the alt-right people. And I'm like, finally, some other ANCAP who's like, not saying, well, maybe just a wall for now. Like, I was like, okay, thank God there's still other ANCAPs who aren't, putting on MAGA hats. And,
Right.
and so, yeah, so no,
Yeah.
when I saw people and they tied you to the fact that one of your friends was in some Nordic culture group or something like that.
Yeah, I have a.
And he had
I have
shirt, and it was like,
no,
this is what you're using. I'm like,
it was way deeper than that, Spike. You have no idea. There's a gentleman in the Libertarian Party of Florida named Ryan Ramsey, who used to be at one point was a skinhead in LA in like the 90s. And he's not anymore, but he's a member of the American Guard who has a platform that I don't agree with.
Right.
They are. Oh God, how do you explain it? They want pretty radical immigration control, and I'm not a fan of that. Being an ANCAP myself, and I've had many like arguments with Ryan Ramsey over this. But at the same time, he's not trying to bring that to the Libertarian Party, and he has stated over and over and over again that that's not why he's here. He's created, I think, 8 new county affiliates in Florida. He was working on a gubernatorial campaign for a Black Cuban. It's
white
like
nationalist that he is.
Show me where the white nationalism is.
Right,
I met the guy in person, and so I took a picture with him at the Florida State Convention, and I took pictures with everybody at the Florida State Convention. If you haven't seen me, I take pictures with my thumbs up. It's kind of what I did.
You had national pictures where you were with James Weeks and Matt and the rest of them. Like, you had pictures with everyone like that.
And I still don't like socialism.
Right,
Go figure.
still don't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm still screaming fuck socialism, right? No, here's the thing. I took a picture with them, and the internet went crazy. The libertarian anti-fascists started saying that I supported fascism and Nazism, never mind the fact that last year I told Augustus Invictus that he should fight me in a cage for charity. And then he made some asinine endorsement of my campaign the day of the chair debates.
I remember
and
that.
then made some 40-minute video the next day about how he single-handedly destroyed my campaign, and I came to the edge of a forest and he was waiting there for me. He was a beast. And I'm like, dude, you blocked me because I challenged you to an MMA fight for charity. Like, what kind of beast are you? And it's I'm never I'm half Israeli. I don't know if you know that. I think you and I talked about it.
No, actually, you did tell me that. Yeah.
And I'm not a Nazi. I don't support Nazism. I think, like we said.
Why are you even having to say that? Like, it's just insane to me that it's like, unless someone actually said something that sounds Nazi, why would you, before you talk to him, are you a Nazi? Like, of course I'm not a Nazi. Like, I mean,
why would you ask?
Why would you even ask that? Like, if you don't see me Sieg Heiling or saying, I have to tell you, I had an episode with Matt, the other person on Muddy Waters Muddy Waters Media, and we got into kind of a rabbit hole about how we like the Autobahn and Fanta and Volkswagen Beetles, and we had to dial it back because we're like, okay, but we're not Nazis, we just like Fanta.
Get the little picture.
Yeah, we're like, yeah. So, but even that, it's like, I don't get it. But it's if you have nothing else, you just ridicule a person and make false accusations. If you can't debate them on the ideology, then you have to go after them personally and make up stuff.
If you're losing a debate, scream Nazi and hope that the court of public opinion gets your back. That's basically what the new left's tactics are. We're going to twist words up. Definitions don't matter anymore. We're going to call everybody that we don't like a Nazi until people hate them. This is the tactics of the left, and it's one of the reasons why I so vehemently oppose bringing them into the party, because we can't let that infect our very logical thinking free market party. We just can't. And so, that's the kind of dishonest tactics that are coming out of that camp. And it was always funny every morning during my chair campaign. I wondered who I was going to be when I woke up in the morning. I wonder what new thing was going to be circulating the internet. I always woke up and I was tagged in a new page. Like,
he's a Satanist. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was like tagged in the Libertarian Anti-Fascist page, or no Nazi libertarians in Florida, or Dankertarians, or the Libertarian Socialist Caucus.
I was shocked by the smear campaign against just you, and I'm like, this is like, we're talking about a chair position for the Libertarian Party. Like, it was a statewide, like a Senate race or something. Like, I was like, what the insane amount of smearing. And again, and I knew it was all crap. And I'm like, why do they care so much? But it's because if you're making it clear that something isn't welcome, it's eventually going to leave. The reason that the Nazis didn't, take over the Libertarian Party when it was looking like they might want to, when all of a sudden the ANCAPs became anarcho-fascist, whatever you want to call them.
It's not a thing.
It's some
anarcho-fascism, libertarian socialism,
dark peopleists or whatever. Yeah, whatever they called it. There was a very clear that the Libertarian Party was like, we're against this. We don't support it. This is not what we're about. Why wouldn't you do the same thing with communists? If you want to, you're talking about, we can't. The argument that we can't get rid of the communists because that'll make the party smaller. Because God knows, in a nation of 325 million people, the best way to make sure your party grows is to have communists in it. Like, that was the stupidest argument to me. I get why people are scared to scare away people in a small party, but you got to think bigger picture here. We're not worried about getting another 50,000 supporters. You're talking about getting 60 million votes in a nationwide election, or 10 million votes in a statewide election, and you're not going to do that with communists threatening to kill everybody.
No, you're not. It's not going to work. And all you got to do is look at like the DSA and any of the socialist parties or movements. Right. They always splinter. They turn into a new party. They splinter off to 4 other parties. Half the party doesn't want to work in electoral politics. It's like there's a reason why, and there's a reason why they don't ever get a strong foothold. And we can't let that come and take over the one party that is pushing back on that stuff all the time. Right. You know what I mean? Well, it's pretty insane, man. The whole thing just blows my mind.
Even in their revolutions, the Bolshevik revolution, then they split into the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks, and they have an election, and there's like 15 different parties. The Bolsheviks lose. Lenin completely ignores it, which is, when people give me a hard time about making Pinochet jokes, and I'll say, well, just think of Pinochet as thinking that Allende was anti-revolutionary, and he just, he canceled the election. Just think about it that way, and now it's okay. But I'm glad to see people fighting against communism. So, Joshua Smith, thank you so much for joining my show. Before I let you go, any final thoughts? Anything that you want to plug? Please use my show to promote anything you possibly want to before we go.
Yeah, well, anybody can follow me at Joshua Smith, LNC at large on Facebook. I post some fire memes from time to time and some text posts and cool stuff like that. I also have a Twitter, Joshua Smith, and at like the @ large, I think. Definitely go check out think-liberty.com. Like we said earlier, we do have a podcast as well. It's usually a roundtable discussion with the 4 founders of Think Liberty, and we usually have Killian Hobbs or somebody cool like that on. We have the meme page at facebook.tl or thinkliberty.tl on Facebook. We got a YouTube channel. We got all that good stuff, and the website has a bunch of really cool articles and interviews and cool stuff. So check it out, and I appreciate everyone tuning in.
Absolutely, and sign up for the Libertarian Party at lp.org. I assume is the
lp.org. But more importantly, first, go join your state party.
Okay.
Go join your state party. The state parties need help immediately. We would love to have you as a member of National too. It's $25 a year. You can usually join your state party for like $5 a year. That's how much the help they need. Some state parties have like a volunteer where if you volunteer a certain amount of hours, you can, keep your membership that way. So cool. Really cool stuff. We have candidates running all over the country, and we have a ton of elections in November. So find a local libertarian candidate to help win, because that, those local politics, all politics is local. And so those are the ones you're going to feel the most. And if you can get a libertarian into a state rep position, you're going to see legislation start getting hacked, which is something that we need to do all over the place.
You want your local people to leave you alone as well, not just on the top level.
So. Yeah, don't just focus on who we're going to run as a president in 2020, because at the end of the day, we're probably not going to win the presidential election in 2020. But you can win some state rep elections. You can win some Secretary of State and state senator and city council, and these are winnable races for us all over the country, and all you got to do is get out there and help somebody. So
cool. Well, thank you again. Stick around. I'm gonna talk with you a little bit more while we're doing the outro, and I'll get the links for your different stuff to put in the show notes later. But again, thank you so much for joining my show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, Spike, very much.
Guys, thank you again for joining the show. Before I let you go, I want to remind you again of our hashtag campaign. hashtag Matandis. That is where we were trying to get Candace Owens to go on a date with Matt. And so far, we have not yet gone viral. So we need to, if Candace, if you're watching, or if any very close friends of Candace are watching, we think Matt Wright is the right guy for Candace. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Joshua, again, thank you for joining me. And everyone, thank you again. And we will see you next week.
Imagine knowing all that started off that war was pride and lies. Be a man, hold it in your eyes. Take a look up in the sky and count the doves. I believe it's 23. Every breath is every step that I've been blessed to get to breathe. Rather let you rest in praises as opposed to rest in peace. At the least, that's just me being me. Convoluted as can be. In my future, I can view it so vivid and beautifully. The distances I will leap from the man that I used to be. But now, summer doesn't exist anymore. Best case scenario, I get to finish the tour. Then chill with the gust in August before I march and march again. Dayquil in April, I know how cold this art can get. My head hurting, I must have a lot on my mind. When I got time on my hands, they put hands on my time. I recognize that body outside, with the holes in the body that was alive. Now confined with chalk outline. Find out how, but you never know why. It ain't even make it to the news at 9. It ain't even make it to the news at 9. That's my sister, mother, father, brother, son. That's one of mine. All these years I close my eyes, open up to only find I'm in line. There's a pointless murder happening all the time. Either lose your life or mine, caught up in them versus I. That ain't how it started, nah. How were we supposed to survive? There's a war going on outside. Who would want to raise a child? Whom the tomb is flashing by. Now you have to say goodbye when you watch them on the news at 5. Don't tell me how, tell me why.